The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. My name is Tracy Nyer, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC. I'll be your facilitator for today's webinar. For those of you that are not familiar, the Virginia SBDC is the largest and most effective provider of customized counseling and education for small businesses in Virginia. Most of our businesses are offered locally in 28 locations throughout the Commonwealth. Today's webinar is one of our educational offerings and is part of our ongoing webinar series, Google and Beyond, Marketing and Managing on the Web. Today's topic is how to take advantage of storytelling with Instagram. All of our Google and Beyond webinars are presented by Ray Sidney Smith, a web and mobile strategist, author of Solo Mo Success, Social Media, Local and Web Small Business Marketing Strategy Explained, and president of W3 Consulting. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type those questions into the question window, and Ray will do his best to answer them. Without further ado, here's Ray Sidney Smith.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you to the Virginia SBDC Network for having me here for the Beyond Google Marketing and Managing on the Web series. Today's topic is Instagram Stories, how to take advantage of storytelling with Instagram. And so just a couple of housekeeping items. If you have any questions, now is the time to ask them in the question panel. Ask Tracy, she'll break in and ask questions as necessary, as they're pertinent, and we'll leave a little bit of time at the end. And I mean a little bit of time because we've got quite a bit of material to cover, but we'll leave some time at the end so that you can answer those questions. I'll stay as long as we need to for me to do that. If you have questions after today, you can always tweet at me. I'm a Twitter person, and you can always tweet at me at W3 Consulting, hashtag it Beyond Google, and I'll know that it's from one of the webinars. I'll be happy to answer you there. If you want to, you can go ahead and follow at Virginia SBDC, and that will keep you aware, apprised of new and other programs and information that the Virginia SBDC is putting out there. So feel free to go ahead and do that. Today's agenda is going to be a little bit different than we normally do, but bear with me. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the benefits of Instagram stories, and that really requires me to go over what storytelling is and the power behind it. So I'm going to go into a little bit of story and fairy tale discussion, but be understanding of the fact that it is in the mission of making sure that we cover what people really need so that you can understand how to use it in a business context. We'll then talk about the actual creation of Instagram stories, what it is and how it really is created on the Instagram platform. And so this is not really fundamentals of Instagram itself, but specifically to Instagram stories and success strategies that we'll be talking about in the third part of our discussion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some of the strategy and tactics that you can use for doing well with Instagram, and then I will actually take you into some profiles so you can see what people are doing. I don't know any of these Instagram profiles, but they were just examples I could find in various blog posts that talked about some of these strategies and were implementing them. So I want to show you them live so that you can see them. And then we're going to close out with some tools that will help you know how to make this a little bit more streamlined, help you plan, and really get yourself on point with regard to managing the Instagram platform. And then, like I said, we'll leave a little time for Q&A. So that's our agenda today over the next 50 or so minutes. And so let's get started. So let's start with some storytelling. Storytelling is what many have called the greatest human technology, and I added the ever. It's kind of a double. It's a double superlative, but. Sorry, I somehow muted myself. So the reality is that stories are really, really powerful technologies that have evolved with mankind so that we are able to pass information along to one another. If you want to think about the story as a fundamental way for us to vicariously learn without having to actually make the mistakes to get that education, right? So what sets us apart from all the other species on our planet is that we're actually capable of passing along historical information from ourselves to our future successors, right? Biologically successful humans have children, and they can pass that information along to one another. But even if you are not, in that very classical scientific sense, biologically successful, you are capable of passing on information to anyone on the planet because of story. And traditionally, that has been an oral tradition, and then we, of course, had the written word and all these other fun things. So story itself has been developing since time immemorial. And what we're doing now as businesses is fundamentally understanding how to structure story so that we can convey that information in pursuit of sales, because you're a business, right? And so we're trying to interpret this material for those purposes. So it's really important for you to do that. We all have an intrinsic ability to tell stories. I know that there are some people who are probably feel that they're poor storytellers, but my hope today is to explain to you the fundamentals of storytelling so that you're able to tell better stories, at least as a business, maybe not at your next cocktail party, okay? But certainly as a business, you can tell really great stories, and even though there are some better storytellers, you are going to be at least a competent one, hopefully by the time we end today. All right, so Instagram stories are what I consider an extension of the brand, and I always talk about this in terms of 3 parts, right? And this is like almost think about any particular story and how they're designed, and then I'll give you some resources actually that you can go to learn more about this. But let's just go over like the really basics of a business's story, right? So if we take a step back actually for a moment, right, and we go to Shakespeare. I happen to like William Shakespeare's work, or whoever William Shakespeare was who authored the works that are known as Shakespeare's works. We have, say, the example of Romeo and Juliet, right? How does Shakespeare start Romeo and Juliet? Right there at the very beginning, he says, we have 2 families that have been feuding for generations. Okay, they've been feuding for generations, and the Montagues and the Capulets are constantly at each other's throats. And we have these two members, one from each family, who fall in love, these star-crossed lovers, and then they die. In essence, Shakespeare is saying, we are telling you the plot up front. The kids die. And yet people are riveted by the rest of the play, right? But he sets the scene. And that's really important here for all businesses, right? And so that's really what I like to think about as the brand story, right? You've got to really put it up front, all the right assets in place so that you can tell a good story. What makes a good scene or a good setup for a brand story? Having a great logo, right? Having a good visual element that you can have attached to the business. Having consistent language so that when somebody comes to your website, they know what you do very quickly. A good tagline, good opening text, that kind of thing. These are all fundamental parts of making sure you have a good brand, but they also help with the brand story. So that means you need to sit down and think, well, what is your brand story? What is the overarching message that you want to be able to convey to people? And that sets the tone, that sets the stage, so to speak, of what you're going to convey on Instagram, okay? But you have to have this kind of infrastructure space developed so that you can stand on top of it. So we have the brand story. Why did you start the business? What's the business's mission? Are there particular principles or values that the business is trying to promote? Okay, are you a social justice-focused organization where you're giving information to people to do better in life? Are you environmentally focused? Do you have some kind of mission to help your community in some way, shape, or form? Well, you need to make sure that the brand is talking about that on the highest levels, and that it makes its way down into the visuals that we're eventually going to be portraying in Instagram. So we need to know this overarching story. Next up is we need to have content for our regular pieces of content, right? So Instagram is about the little granules, sort of the breadcrumbs that you lay out along the path like with Hansel and Gretel. And so, we know that Hansel and Gretel are going through the forest, and they see the little pieces of candy, and they go along and follow the pieces of candy, and they eventually end up at the witch's home, right? Who wants to, of course, cook them and eat them. And so the same thing applies here, analogously to the content that you create for Instagram. The breadcrumbs here, or the pieces of candy, represent each post or the set of posts that you're going to put on Instagram in order to develop the overarching story, right? So it's going to have a little hint of the scene, right? Because that's where it's taking place. And in many cases, this is in your business or about your business or at something related to that. And so there's this overarching theme, but now these little stories happen inside of the larger context. So you tell these smaller stories. Some examples might be showing some of the behind the scenes happening. Say if you have a pastry shop, right? You have a natural set of small stories. Everything that you're producing is a potential story, right? The bringing into life of that particular batch of cookies or those pastries that you're developing, and just seeing the manufacturing is a fantastic story that can be told. There's history behind the making of the recipe. And that can be portrayed visually. There's the person who's baking it, if that's you, or if you have on staff pastry chefs, you are now showing them producing the material, the baked goods, and then of course displaying and retailing those, however it's being packaged and displayed, and your customers experiencing it, right? So that's the show your clients, industries, or products. So what you want to do is you want to tell the story of your clients. So if you're in this fictional pastry shop, right, you want to see your clients eating the pastries and enjoying the pastries and selecting the pastries, and what's the story behind why these people want these pastries? Is there a birthday party involved? Why should I, as the person on the other side consuming your content, I'm on Instagram and I'm going through your content, why should I care? You need to tell me the story of why I should care. And the hope is that you're going to entertain me, you're going to educate me, and you're also going to allow me to relate, right? And so a lot of what story is structured around is empathy, letting me feel what you're feeling. And ultimately, what you want me to do is you want me to feel like one of your past customers that has had a great experience with you. So by showing your, in this pastry chef example, people eating and enjoying your pastries, by doing so, you are giving me a small sense that, again, that vicarious learning without actually having to suffer the true costs or consequences of doing so. I'm able to do that. There's a trend, if you want to call it that, called food porn. Okay, and there's nothing untoward about this. This is actually the posting of beautiful images of food and like pastries, and people being able to browse them and see new recipes, and just to look at the beautiful food that's created on this planet. It's something that we do frequently, multiple times per day we eat, and sometimes those are just kind of administrative, right? We just eat because we have to, but to be able to see food produced in this very aesthetically pleasing way has become a huge market unto itself. Well, as that pastry chef or that pastry shop, showing the story of all of these things puts people into that, stepping into the shoes of the client, experiencing the joy, and that's going to want me to go to the pastry shop eventually and say, you know what, when I decide to buy a pastry, I'm going to go to this bakery or this pastry shop, and I'm going to experience that same enjoyment that I saw in that story I saw on Instagram. Okay, I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer that. But that's really the idea here. Like, tell the story of your products, tell the story of your industries, show me how to feel what the story is trying to communicate. And then finally, we have a resolution of every story, right? The story has to come to some close, and each of your stories will have different resolutions, but obviously the most important one for me, for you, is the buy now, the call to action for people to buy from you, whether that's a product or a service. So it's really important for you to be understanding the importance of having calls to action in the appropriate places so that you can have resolution to these stories. There's an important psychological premise here, which is that humans need closure. So we open the scene of a story with something like Romeo and Juliet, where we tell the plot right up front. We're not being coy about it. These kids are going to die. And now your choice is to say, okay, get up in the theater and walk out because you know the ending, or say, well, wait a second. Shakespeare wouldn't have told me all of this had he not known that there was something really important to be learned, to be entertained by, to feel that he's got 5 more acts. Three more acts and many more scenes to walk me through 5 acts. I think they were 5-act plays. Whatever, somebody can correct me. But the point is that there's a whole play involved, right? And so we open up this sense of mystery, and that's what you need to create with regard to setting scene, right? What's the mystery? What's the untold parts of the story that you need to fill in? And that's, of course, your content. And then you need to provide resolution. And you're going to keep setting the scene, writing content and producing content in Instagram stories. It's a particular way, and we'll talk about that momentarily. And then eventually the resolution for at least some of the posts is going to be buy now, right? The call to action to do those things. All right. This is just a kind of a basic thing. We have done a webinar on editorial calendars before, so you can go to the virginiaspdc.org, and then under training, live webinars and recordings, if you scroll down, you'll see the archives section. I highly recommend that you go back and look at the editorial templates and the discussion of editorial calendars, but you really need an editorial calendar with regard to Instagram. When you first get started with Instagram and you're just posting and that kind of thing, it's all well and fine not to have an editorial calendar. But once you get to stories really requires you to have a structure involved that is truly a plan of what you're going to produce. And it's not as actually complicated as you think, and I'll explain why momentarily. But you have to have an editorial calendar, okay? So you have to at least have broad themes. What are you going to talk about over the next month, 2 months, 6 months, and so on and so forth? All right, in order to be able to do this, we need to talk a little bit about some of the Instagram basics. If you have never used Instagram before, then this is going to be a little bit foreign to you, so I want to make sure we cover some of the important functions of Instagram and how they then are different with Instagram stories. So first and foremost, Instagram has 4 different types of content that can be produced. These are all based on photo or video. Instagram is a mobile-focused platform. So for the most part, Instagram wants you to have a phone or a tablet, mobile tablet, where you are interacting and engaging with the platform. Okay, so it's mobile focused. That means that for the vast majority of the buying world today that uses their mobile phone for accessing almost everything in life, Instagram has become this very popular platform for being able to drive traffic, and that's why they've become so popular and Facebook bought them. And so you have 4 different types: photo, video, stories, and live, which is broadcasting a live feed to people who are watching and listening to your Instagram live feed. Okay, so you have 4 different types of profiles, and you have several different types of engagement. In this particular case, I'm listing 4 different types of engagement. You can heart something as a user on Instagram. You can heart something. It's kind of like, I like this thing. You can comment on a photo or a video post, and that also means you can actually direct message within a story, and I left that out. But commenting is basically messaging within the story. And you can follow a profile. So if you serendipitously come across a piece of content on Instagram through the Explore functionality within Instagram, and you're like, oh, well, I like this content that this person is producing. Well, now you can follow that person. And then there's the final one, which is the hope that a user never uses with you, which is the block and or report functionality. And that type of engagement is obviously very negative, and that means you're doing something potentially not within law or reason. So you need to, make sure that you're not getting blocked and reported to Instagram. So you want likes, comments, and follows. Next up is determining the story arc on Instagram, and this comes to understanding some of the fundamentals of the whole structure of the layout of the system, and I'm going to go over that. So we'll go over that, and of course, telling it over and over again. Repetition on Instagram is actually really important because the idea is that you might be telling a different story, but you're telling the same brand message over and over and over again. So that's what I kind of mean. The brand story arc is what you're repeating over and over again, even though the content is different. All right, so continuing on with definitions. First and foremost, you need a business profile. So if you have an Instagram account, it doesn't take very much to change it into a business profile, but you have to enable the business profile functionality. And they give you instructions for doing that in the help section. It's very simple, but what it does allow you now is insights. So a normal Instagram account, the personal version of that, does not provide you with analytics. How many people have visited your profile? How many people have seen and engaged with your content? I mean, you can look at how many people have liked or commented on a post, but this gives you graphical data that is much, much more helpful. It also gives you an address line so that people can find a retail location. If you want to publish a retail location, you can have that address, or your office location. If you're a service provider, you can now add a location for people to be able to see. And I'm going to show you a profile shortly so you can see what that's all about. You then get 3 additional links: call, email, and directions. So not only can you click the address itself and be taken to that, but you can click on directions and it will automatically open up your map application on your phone and give you an automated means for navigating to that location. Right? So really, really powerful tool. Call and email are what they sound like. One will execute the call functionality to your phone app on your phone, and email will open up your email app and execute an email message. So as a business profile, now you have a really great way for people being able to reach out to you, because those links are now in your profile, which would not be if it was a personal one. One additional benefit is the integration of third-party software, which is that you cannot use Instagram, say, with several of the tools that I'll be talking about at the end of the webinar if you do not have this set up as a business profile. Okay, so for just business productivity purposes, you want it to be integrated with these softwares so you can be more, automate things and share access to employees in a safe manner without giving up, usernames and passwords and that kind of thing. So you can do that, but only if it's a business profile. And then finally, you can advertise on the Instagram platform, and you can only advertise on the Instagram platform by having a business profile, right? So you need to promote the posts with that, because if you don't, then the Facebook's system, which is where you advertise, you advertise through Facebook for Instagram. Again, it's about tracking the data, and that's very difficult to do if you don't have it set up as a business profile. So you have to have it set up as a business profile for many, many reasons, in addition to the terms of service and all kinds of other things. But for these reasons alone, you should make sure you have a business profile. Okay, so now on to the Instagram stories themselves. So in order to add a story, this is sometimes complicating to people, but you actually go to your own profile. So you see in the bottom right-hand corner of the screenshot, our logo. That's our, the business logo there. You click on your own image that you have as set as your profile image. And in the top left-hand corner, you will now see your profile image again and a little plus sign. That is how you execute the launch of the Instagram Stories interface. Okay, and just to cover a couple of things I talked about earlier, just visually now, you can see that you have the profile up on screen, and you really need to optimize your own brand story within the context here. And I've done it fairly simply here, right? So we do web, mobile, and social strategy, right? So I've set the scene. I've given up the goose, right? That's what we do. And I've gone further to say we support SBDCs supporting small business, right? So now I'm telling people who my audience is, who are the people that I can help most, in being able to provide my services. So even in the bio itself, you need to really structure how you create and set that scene. This is the setting of the scene. This is where people are going to come to figure out a little bit about who you are, and that creates the theme of the story. We then have the business profile links following the next one on the right-hand side clockwise, and those business profile links are very, very helpful. Because again, call, email, directions. And then below that, we actually have the grid. And you will hear this frequently spoken about, the grid. And the grid is actually the grid, the 3 columns that run down where each of the posts that you post to your profile appear. Now, these are not Instagram stories, all right? So the Instagram stories then appear above the grid where my cursor is. They appear here when you start to save stories. So you can save stories and they show up in this middle section. I did want to note though, you have the ability to, this is the grid icon, so this is what I'm displaying right now. If I clicked on this icon, the second icon in, you're actually capable of showing this in a larger display. So each of the images then displays with the comments and likes below it, and then you can scroll kind of like a feed, one after the other after the other. And then you have some other options for being able to see the people who have tagged you in posts. That's this third image in, and then fourth image is when you've saved a post that you want to look at later. And so you can kind of, it's like a bookmarking functionality within it, and that's what that is. Okay. Finally, we have the link in bio. And this is really important to understand as it relates to writing good stories and the resolution, the calls to action that you're going to create, right? Because here I have created this link, and very frequently in Instagram, people are confused by this because Instagram does not allow clickable links other than hashtags, and I'll talk about that shortly. So other than hashtags, you can't have links in the body of Instagram messages. Instagram's actually gone even further than that, so that even if you click on a description of an item and try to copy it, you actually copy the entire message. So you can't just copy just the link and copy and paste that into a browser on your phone. You actually have to copy the whole thing out and delete the other text involved, and then cut or copy the URL and paste it. It's, believe you me, it is utterly annoying and frustrating, and Instagram's not going to change because they don't want links, spamming up their feed. So they've enforced this thing. So users of Instagram frequently change what they call their link in bio, because it's the link that's in the bio. And so you'll hear them say link in bio, link in bio, link in bio. And that means go to my profile and click on the link that I've put there. And there'll be new links all the time, which then means that the older posts links become or the older posts descriptions to go to the link in bio may not be the most up-to-date one. So they become kind of refuse. This is where I've created this kind of thought here, and I've seen other people doing this now, and I really like the idea, so I've implemented it, and this is what I do. So instead of just having the link to a blog post, what I'm doing is I've created a special page on my website so that people go to the website to this special page. Now, this link in the bio stays the same. It's always the same. But instead, now they get taken to, and this is the in-app browser inside of Instagram on my phone. So I haven't left the app. It's just launched the in-app browser, and it's taken me to the link in bio. But let me go back for a second here. As you can see here, this last post that I posted yesterday is about encouraging small business owners to engage with the Webby Awards, the 22nd annual Webby Awards, which is I think on May 15th or something like that. And so, so this upcoming, and so the voting is through the 22nd. Oh no, it's the 22nd annual. I think voting goes through today, and so I was letting people know about it, right? So instead of posting a link in the comment in the description of the photo, which wouldn't be possible because people couldn't copy it out, I have now put that link in the bio page. So here it is: vote for your favorites on the Webby Awards, and it's the first link. But what I've also done now on this page is that, if people want to see the webinar archives, they can go to the Virginia SBDC website and check out the webinar archives. If they're interested in reading our blog or podcast or other things, those are there and ready for people to click on and be taken to immediately. So for you, you would have your website, you would have maybe some of your service pages ready there because you're selling stuff to people. So you need to think business minded about this. And then below that, I have recent past links, and this keeps. Maybe I'll keep 5, maybe I'll keep 10. I haven't really decided at this moment, but just keeping kind of a running list of the past links so that older posts aren't so easily obsolete. Because that's what's happening now with people who say, okay, well, I posted a new post today. I updated my link in bio. Well, now it's, the one that I posted yesterday, that link is no longer in the bio. So I don't know how to consume that information. I don't know how to get to it now. Okay, so this really helps solve that problem. So I really highly recommend it, and so go forward and do that. And this takes us to the stories concept, of using the link in bio message in stories, right? Because that's what we're talking about today. All right, so this takes me to hashtags and the importance of hashtags on Instagram. And the importance of them within stories is also something here. So let's take it first at the top. Instagram allows 30 hashtags per post, and so you are capable of putting up to 30 hashtags into the description of any one post on Instagram, whether that be photo or video, and so. Different than other cultures of other social networks, it is completely acceptable to just jam as many Instagram hashtags into your Instagram posts. This would not be acceptable on Twitter. It wouldn't be acceptable on Facebook. It wouldn't be acceptable on LinkedIn, that just recently adopted hashtags, and so on and so forth. But for some reason, on Instagram, the kids don't care. So those folks who grew up with Instagram are fully comfortable with it, so it's become a part of the culture. And this is really important to understand, that each social network has their own culture, and you really need to understand it. So hashtag away. I highly recommend that you have a tool like Evernote or the Notes app on your phone, and you identify the top hashtags for your business, for your industry, and you keep those in a note somewhere, so you can just go over to it and copy it and paste it into items. So I'm going to hop out here. I use the website allhashtag.com, and there's a hyphen between that, so it's all-hashtag.com. And I'm going to it now. And what you do is you just type in your keyword, and you have to. It always says random here, but I'm going to click on top because I'm looking for the most used hashtags, and then you click on generate, and then once it's done, I'll give it a moment. Voila, it now shows me for the best 30, because of the limit, right? The limit within Instagram, the 30 hashtags for small business. And so there's actually a handy little copy button. I could just click copy. And now what you want to do is you want to sit down and read these hashtags. Maybe not all 30 of them are relevant for you. Maybe I don't want small business Australia, or maybe I don't want there's one that says small business that's spelled wrong. This is a misspelling of small business. Maybe I don't want that one. So you could do your research and figure out, okay, which of the hashtags do I really want? Maybe there are ones here that are not relevant, and maybe a post, you may add a couple of hashtags that are relevant to your post that are not in your standard hashtags. So you may not want to have a full 30. You may want to have maybe 25, and that way 5 of them are always unique when you go to post. But allhashtag.com is very, very helpful for just being able to produce the hashtags and giving you at least a baseline to start from. Okay, so I highly recommend that.
Ray, do you recommend using the same hashtags by copying and paste from the previous post?
If you're able to, most often than not, you're not able to, because the description will just copy the entire description plus the hashtags. So either way, it requires you pasting it into someplace and then editing it, which is why I like having it in a separate document, right? So it's like I have my standard, actually the ones that are in the back of this slide right now, right? Those are the standard ones I use, and then I usually delete a few and then add a few. So I have that baseline, and that's held in Evernote because I use Evernote, and it's just a note that I've created, and I copy those in every time, and then delete a few, add a few to kind of customize and tailor it based on the content, right? So if I'm talking about cybersecurity, I'm going to delete the ones that I don't want and add hashtag cybersecurity to those. If I'm talking about marketing, I'm going to add a hashtag marketing. So it's tailoring it to the post each time, but I have that base of about 25 or so hashtags that are the core ones that I know a lot of people are posting to. Okay, so this is one of those things. Hashtags are being used in this case as well as in stories, so that you are bringing more people to your content than the people who follow you, because people are using the explore functionality within Instagram to see content based on those hashtags, right? So if I'm interested in small business marketing, I'm going to look for the hashtag small business marketing, and I'm going to see a feed of many profiles of people I don't know, businesses that I don't know, and experts I don't know about small business marketing. And now I can go through that feed and find content that's interesting to me. And that's how people serendipitously come across this content and come across your business, by you hashtagging things that are broad hashtags that other people are searching for. So you don't want to use too specific of hashtags, because that will limit your exposure, right? And so a healthy mix, so to speak, is good in this case. So I hope that answered the question. All right, so now we get to stories proper, and I want to talk a little bit about stories proper so that we have some understanding of this. And I know this is a little bit of a lesson in how Instagram works, but it's just really important to understand this. So the benefits of using Instagram Story is where we are, and the first thing to really think about are the notifications. So Instagram automatically surfaces content to the user, right, which is your potential target audience, your potential customers and clients, by organizing the posts associated with what Instagram thinks will be the most relevant to them. Very similar to the way that Google search works, right? It tries to understand the intent of the web searcher, and then it displays the most relevant information for the intent of the search. Well, the Instagram story circumvents that a little bit. So by producing Instagram stories, as you can see here, this is my notifications. I guess yesterday, since it says the 17th, and right there at the bottom of the list of notifications, it tells me, hey, your profile, W3 Consulting, has had these 3 people recently add to their stories. Okay, and so this is a push notification from Instagram of content that these organizations or businesses or experts have published to Instagram stories that would not be a notification if it was just a normal Instagram post. Okay, this cannot be understated. Instagram is pushing notifications to users for those people, those business owners, smart enough and savvy enough and have the determination to be successful with Instagram and choose to post to stories. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2 is that Instagram stories actually are the little circles that appear at the top of your Instagram feed as a user. So dissimilar to the posts, which just kind of flow and they move around based on Instagram's algorithm, if you post to stories, it stays there as this little orb that floats at the top of Instagram. And that is very, very powerful to staying top of mind for your potential audience, right? You want to consistently be top of mind when they're ready to buy from you or to hire you for a service. Well, being one of those images that appears at the top, even if the customer or client, potential client, has not is not clicking on the stories, the fact that they see it keeps you current in their mind, and that's a very, very powerful benefit. Okay, stories end up being higher engagements. People tend to Instagram itself, the platform, had identified that when they implemented stories, they got 20% increase in engagement on the platform just from implementing stories, and I believe that number has probably only gotten better since then. The reason for that is that Instagram stories are near real time, and so it gives this feeling of again, we like to live in the moment with what's going on, and so the stories feel kind of casual in a way, even though they can be highly thought out. They're near real time and they feel very casual and they feel very spontaneous, and that gets people excited because people like that. Instagram story posts, the posts that go into the Instagram stories, do not automatically go to your grid. So they don't show up on your profile. They show up and then they disappear over time, and I'll talk about that. So you can post less than stellar things on Instagram stories, and it's not going to muddy up, it's not going to make your grid look ugly. Okay, so you can post there, and then you can go ahead and say, oh, well, you know what? This post is really actually quite good. I want that to go to the grid, and now you have the choice of pushing it as a post to your grid, to the feed, so that users can see it if Instagram chooses to show it to them, but it will then also go to your profile for permanent display. And then you can also choose to affix the specific stories to your profile, as I talked about. Another benefit of Instagram stories is that you can add text to images. So in Instagram posts, you can only use filters, right? And then add comments with hashtags. Well, and then you can tag people and you can tag location. You can do all of that in an Instagram story, but in this particular case, you can add text to the images, right? So you can write right on the images, and you can apply these stickers and all kinds of other fun things. You can throw emojis on the images, and you can draw directly on the images. So you have a lot of creative power here within the stories functionality that's not available within the normal native posts. So Instagram stories themselves, their structures are 15 seconds of photo or video per post within a story. Okay, so if you have a photo that you post to Instagram stories, right, you go to your profile, you click on that little blue plus sign, it opens up the interface for Instagram stories. When you post a photo, an image of any kind, it will show it for 15 seconds and then go away. And the user has the ability to pause that and to scroll back and all kinds of other things, but it shows for 15 seconds. The video is also 15 seconds, so you can put in 15-second increments of video within a story. Story posts stay for 24 hours and then they disappear. So users have this, as I said a little bit earlier, they have this sense of oh my gosh, I better check out this story before it disappears. I follow several experts, and when they post something, I personally feel that fear of missing out, FOMO, right? Because I'm like, oh, you know what? I better check that out before the story goes away. So I better open it up right now as soon as I get that notification and make sure that I read that material, because I don't want to miss it. And so Instagram Stories creates this sense of time demand, so that you rush over there and actually look at it. So it's very, very powerful in that sense. So Instagram Stories also have different types. It says it has 5 types, and so type, which is why I quoted it. Type is a type, and that means you can actually write text. You can have a text photograph, like an image with text on it, and there are 5 different backgrounds or templates that you can write type-based or text-based stories. So you can like just write a word-based message to your audience, right? You know, like go back to the pastry shop, right? The cookies are ready, right? And then you can then throw a link to your location, and now your users are going to get an update in their feed, in their stories, you know, display. And when they click on it, it's going to say fresh cookies. You know, the cookies are baked, and people now know to go head over to your shop because the cookies are fresh, right? So you can use one of these type-based posts within stories. You have live, which is Instagram live, and so you can literally go live on camera, you know, on your phone's camera, and start talking to your audience. Normal is just basically taking a photograph. It could be a selfie, or it can be taking a picture of something and then putting it through a filter and posting it. Boomerang is where it's a short video. It's actually either it's probably a GIF, I think, and so it actually plays the video without audio forwards and backwards. Okay, so it like basically plays it forwards and then plays it in reverse, back and forth. So it has this little tiny tool, and people have made great fun of using that tool. Super zoom is mostly for selfies, and so it identifies your face, and then it then blurs out the background, I think, so that it does that. Focus is the same thing, I think. I can't really ever tell what the difference is between the two of them, but super zoom and focus are the options for being able to focus on an object up close and then blur out the background. I feel like that's what super zoom does also, but I think it's specifically for selfies. Rewind takes video and plays it in reverse. So if you wanted to show something being done in reverse, and that's part of the story, that could be really fun, right? So maybe you, instead of putting the cookies on the display case at the end of the day, you can actually post as part of the Instagram story, the rewind version of it, right? The cookies come off the display at close of business, so people know you're closing up shop for the day, or that you've run out of cookies, right? Many pastry shops and bagel shops and coffee shops, and they run out of a particular product for the day. That's it. They don't have any more inventory, and they pretty much close up. Well, maybe you do that. Maybe you have a rewind post in your story that then says, come back tomorrow. We're all out today, and it's actually the start of the day when you're actually putting the product on the shelves, or full inventory, but playing it in rewind. Just an example. Hands-free is what it sounds like. So when you're taking photo and video, you have to press the button. In this case, hands-free allows you to take video without holding down the button on your screen. So you can put it into a tripod or something that stands up, and then you can press the button and it will start recording without you having to hold down the button. And then, of course, you have on screen the ability to select a photo. I'm not showing you this on and inside of the tools themselves, because quite honestly, the tools change constantly since Instagram stories came about in mid-time last year. The interface has changed several times. So I just really want to impress upon you that you have to use, whether you're on iOS or Android or otherwise, the system's going to change. So just go into it, know that you'll be able to launch Instagram stories from your profile image, that little blue plus sign, and then play around with the interface, because it'll inevitably change. Okay, let's talk about some of the strategies and other things, and then I want to take you into some of these profiles in the time that we have left. Okay, so first and foremost, posting at live events. This is similar to live tweeting, but you really need to think about how you're using Instagram stories in these near real-time opportunities. That's the whole point of being able to drive interest, is using this time scarcity construct. The fear of missing out is very, very powerful, and it's something that we should steward. But the reality is that use it. It's basically a little bit of fear that if your target audience doesn't come and see that content, they're going to not see it at all. And so if you can create the right types of stories, you can effectively say, these things are happening live, and there may be incentives for being able to have people come to live events. You could just be at a conference where you're learning about stuff in your industry, and you could be posting live from that event as Instagram posts. Like as a speaker is talking, you could be taking quotations using the type post within stories. So you're not even taking an image you could take a picture of the presenter as well while they're presenting and write a caption of what the quote of that person says. You could be at your shop and one of your staff members or you said something that's quotable. You could take a selfie and then put a little quote on it and post it live. And again, this is about it being ephemeral, and so it doesn't have to be perfect, right? You don't have to have perfect hair. You don't have to have perfect outfit. It's just a fun, nice, casual post. These candid, exciting moments in a business are frequently lost. I always tell people you don't have to worry about producing so much content when you learn how to capture the moments better. Okay, and that's what Instagram stories are really about. It's about being able to capture really great moments. If you're a realtor, it's that moment when you hand the keys to the new homeowner, right? They're usually exhausted and relieved from the process, but they're also really excited to start a new chapter in their life of owning this new home. That's a really great opportunity to capture that moment and post it to your audience so they can see what it's like to live vicariously through someone else and to feel and experience the exhilaration of owning a home. Okay. Next is you can actually save posts to your grid. I've already talked about that, and you can curate those good ones. If you take a selfie and the image is not so great, you just let Instagram stories let it expire and you go on with your day. But if it's a really great photo, like, wow, the lighting was perfect, I look slim, I look a little younger, whatever it is your beef with the way you look, the picture seemed to turn out really well, you can now curate that to the grid and save it from the stories post into your grid and call it a day. You always want to take photos and video in portrait mode. More than 90-something% of users experience Instagram in portrait mode, so just don't think about landscape. Take photo and video in portrait mode. The Instagram Stories allows you to use polls. So as part of your stories, the brand arc that you're creating should really be about partially, at least a third of it, I always say, is market research. You should be learning from your audience that's following you, the community that you're organizing. And so you really want to pay attention to what can you learn from them. And so since you can just launch a really quick poll, yes, no, green, blue, whatever it is that you want to learn from your audience, ask these very simple questions as parts of your stories and see what information you can learn. And of course, end stories with calls to action. It's really, really important for you to have calls to action and incentives for people being able to do that. If you can give a discount code for just your Instagram stories, people, that encourages them to come back and look for new discount offers when the prior ones expire and other things like that. So really think about how you're incentivizing them to come back to those stories. Use time scarcity and use the idea of only offering incentives within the stories that are temporal, that are ephemeral, and saying, you've got to watch the stories, come back tomorrow and check it out. It's just exactly what happens on radio or television or anywhere. They always leave a little bit of, a little breadcrumb out there to say, or a little piece of candy out there in the forest, like Hansel and Gretel, and say, come back next week when this really, interesting thing is going to happen. This really shocking thing is going to happen. Well, you do the same thing in Instagram stories and lure your potential audience back to the Instagram stories through the incentive. So the incentive doesn't have to be even a discount. It could just be what's happening next week, tomorrow, next month. And so that way they're paying attention. Okay, I want to quickly jump over to some of the profile strategies because I think this is really important and then I'll talk about some of the tools, and we'll go through that. All right, so one of the first really cool examples is the checkerboard. And so this is bossbabe.inc, the profile. And as you can see, what they do is they have a white tile and then either a pinkish, peachish tile next to it, and then another white, and then they invert that so that over time you can see this consistent brand coloring, right? See the logo is colored the same as the colored tiles, and as you scroll through the feed, what do you see? You see this very consistent coloring of the grid. Okay, and so in this feed, you are seeing the grid tell a brand story, right? You have a scene that is very clear. It's very distinct that this is their feed when you see it, and it goes back and forth between telling the internal stories, the content, right? But it has a clear brand message. Next up is the usage of the here on the personal journal app. What they've done is they've used the horizontal rows to tell specific stories. So here you can see that they have images on one line and then words on the next that are alternating stories and images. Okay, and we can see that as we scroll through all of these stories, images, and then you can see that the stories all match up as we make our way through the feed. So that's another strategy, is basically setting up 3 posts at a time. Well, in this case, 6 posts at a time. Image, story below it, image, story below it, and so on and so forth. Okay. Next up, My Simplegram. What they've done is they've used the vertical column in the center to do the same thing. So in this case, they have 2 images that are sandwiching the central image, which is white in this case. So you could obviously invert that to have the outer sides be other material and the center one be the anchor. And they're telling the story in the center of the 3 posts across. So each 3 posts tell a story. Each 3 posts tells this smaller story that's really, really just great. You know what I mean? And see the color consistency, and it's simple, but it's well thought out, and it's really great. So just think about ways in which you can be creative with this stuff. A couple more examples. This one is about color consistency. Notice the strong theme of purple here. So you can actually use either filters with Instagram to create these kinds of stories. And I'm showing you grids. I'm explaining this in the sense that I can't show you stories on screen. So forgive me here, but use this and interpret this for stories, right? You want to do the same thing. You want these kinds of consistencies that you then can curate to your grid if you want to. But the point here is that you can really create some alternate and useful strategies for being able to do that. But the point here is the color consistency. You could do this in Instagram stories, right? You could have all purple posts for 24 hours, and then the next day they'd be all blue, and then all red, or whatever your brand color is or brand colors are. You would go ahead and do that, so that over time, as you curate specific stories to posts, they then are also consistent. All right, and last one. So this one's really cool because they've chosen to do circle. This is a personal profile, I presume, of this woman's children or this couple's children. And so these little adorable twins, she's chosen to use a template so that all of the images are cropped to be circles. And so don't be limited by the square, so to speak. You can make an image. You can make some images have a wider white band, and some go to the edge, so that different images are actually different sizes inside of the stream to stand out. All of these are ways in which you can make the stories themselves look unique, even though they're all the same shape and size and all that other fun stuff. Okay, so just kind of keep in mind some creativity there, but I wanted to show you some of the examples of ways in which you could curate the grid. But curate to the grid from Instagram stories that are really good. All right, so my last couple minutes, I want to talk about tools, and forgive the incorrect title there, but these are tools. So first and foremost is Canva. Canva is the graphic design tool. There is a mobile version for iOS and Android. And so I highly recommend that you install Canva. It is a fantastic tool for being able to quickly create Instagram photos and otherwise, so that you can get images created and quickly post them to Instagram stories very, very fast. These all are tools that allow you to create Instagram posts. These do not allow you to create Instagram stories, but I wanted to still offer them because they all have some level of editorial calendar structure within them. And so you can actually plan your posts in line with your stories. Okay, so what I want you to do when you create that editorial calendar is to have the editorial calendar in place so that you have your anchor posts match up with your Instagram stories. Okay, so while these are for scheduling your posts to the Instagram, or whether that be audio, photo or video, your Instagram posts are going to, as the story posts, are going to need to be done live in real time. There's no way to automate that function currently. But you want to make sure that you're not posting Instagram stories that are out of sync with the stories of your normal posts. Ripple does video, so it can turn text with a photo on it into moving images, which is a really great functionality. And if you want to record longer format video and then cut it up into those 15-second videos for an Instagram story, this is only iOS, unfortunately, but it's an application called Cut Story. There are actually two other applications, also iOS. One's Continual, the other one's Storio, and they actually take the video. Say you have a 2-minute long video, it then goes ahead and you upload the video, and then it cuts it into 15-minute ones and then gives you back those videos so you can then upload them individually as Instagram story posts. Okay, there's supposedly one called Story Cutter on Android. I looked at it as of this morning. It had like a 3.2 star rating and a bunch of people complaining about it. So I think you need to borrow your friend's iPhone if you are on the Android platform like I am, and do this if you need to get a video that's long cut up. So those are some really fun tools that you can use for getting up and running really quickly with Instagram stories. I'm going to put the final slide up, let Tracy close us out, and then I'm happy to answer any questions that folks have.
That's good, Ray, because we have a lot of them. You kept going, and I couldn't quite stop to get them in at the time that you were talking about different topics, so I decided to hold them all to the end. Thank you, everyone, for participating today. Today's webinar was recorded, and it'll be posted on the Virginia SBDC website under live webinars and recordings. Tomorrow, you'll be receiving a follow-up email on this webinar, and there'll be an evaluation link in that email. Please help us to continue to improve our training by taking the time to complete the evaluation. And join us on May 17th for podcasting your way into profitability. All right, let's go with the questions. I have 12,000 followers, but receive on average 400 viewers on my Instagram stories. Is there a way I can get more of my followers to engage in my Instagram stories organically?
Yeah, sure. So the first thing is making sure that your posts are encouraging people to know about the stories. And this comes back to the calls to action in your posts to incentivize them to check out stories, right? So as I talked about, at the end of a radio show or the end of a television series, they show a little clip of what's going to happen on the next show and what's shocking or interesting about it. What is it going to benefit them? You're going to entertain or educate them in some way, shape, or form. You want your posts to be in line with your stories so that the posts incentivize your audience to then go back to your stories over time. And I think that's the best organic strategy that I've seen implemented by brands, and it's a very effective. I think it's the most effective tool for being able to do so.
Okay. Is Instagram primarily used for a B2C business model, or is there a space for it in a B2B organization?
So I'm B2B, and I'm kind of novice myself in using Instagram. Although I talk to lots of clients about utilizing it in their businesses, primarily B2C. I have still seen a tremendous growth in traffic just from the little bit of posting that we've done with Instagram on a B2B level. So I see a huge potential.
Okay. I think it's important to know the specific time when you post your photos or videos. Your post can get easily lost on your feed, and it would not get enough attention if you post in the wrong time. I don't know that there's a question there. Is it important to know the specific time when you post?
Right. So again, this falls to stories are posted in real time and then held at the top of the feed for the user. So the exact time is not necessarily necessary because Instagram's going to push a notification to the user of a few stories that have been posted recently, and will hold it there for them at the top of the screen for 24 hours. So that's not particularly an issue. That would be an issue for posts. But even then, Instagram's algorithm is moving posts around independent of the time you post it. So the answer is probably no.
Okay. Couple of questions about the bio page. How do I create the bio page, and can you use Linktree software in the links in the bio?
Right. So Linktree is definitely one of the tools that creates the evergreen link in bio that allows you to change things. I don't really feel the need to pay somebody $6 a month for the pleasure of creating a page with a few links on it. You could just do it yourself. And this is very simple. You go to your website and create a new page, and you can name it actually whatever you want. I mean, you could just call it mybusinessname.com/Instagram. And then that's the link you use in your link in bio, and you put whatever content you want on that page. The point is that it can't be different from what the person reading the Instagram post should be expecting, right? So if I say go vote for the Webby Awards, your favorite tools for the Webbies, well, duh, they should go to that link in bio and they should get that link to the Webby Awards. The fact that I provided them other links is kind of secondary, right? But as long as you're updating them, yeah, so you should be logging into your website and updating your blog on a regular basis. I don't really see a need to have another application. I update it from the WordPress application on my phone, and it's been really easy. And that way, other staff on my team can log into it as well and update it. So it's actually much easier for me to think about it as this separate page on the website. It's not in the navigation of our website. It's not like in the menu bar of our website. It's just a page sitting on our website in the background, and it's utilized for Instagram.
Great. Can you hashtag in Instagram stories?
You can. So it's actually within the text posting options, the little stickers, there is a hashtag option.
Okay. Is it better to use a more unique hashtags compared to a very specific one that the majority of users use to stay above the feed? For example, hashtag small business with 12,000 or 12 million posts compared to hashtag small biz with 2 million posts.
Right. So the goal is to use hashtags in two different ways. One, as an ability to be serendipitously found, through the explore functionality, and that's when you want to use the more widely used hashtags. Since you have up to 30 of them, you can use some of the less often used ones as well as the broader ones. But in Instagram stories, where you're limited, you have a limited set of hashtags you can even put on screen. You then want to choose the ones that are the most popular ones of those, right? So you want to use the most popular ones. Now, on the other side, you use hashtags for limiting or filtering down to a specific conversation. So for example, if I'm only talking to people who are attending an event, I would have a very unique hashtag that wouldn't be commonly used because it's only for communicating with the people there at the event, right? So we used hashtags for two very different reasons. The marketing one broad, as many people as you can get in front of, or, to be quite honest, you want to use a hashtag that is also your community, right? So you wouldn't use a hashtag that was small business if you were really trying to focus on small businesses in Roanoke, right, or in Virginia Beach. You would maybe hashtag things small business and Virginia Beach, right? Because you're trying to localize it a bit. So even then, you're trying to get the broadest audience that's going to be relevant to you, right? Versus the other side of hashtagging, which is using the hashtag to be able to communicate to a smaller group of people.
Okay. What's the best style, grid, etc., to display for a small business?
They're all quite fine. I see most often modern being used. I think that's because it's the default that shows up. So I don't have a particular aesthetic opinion about that. You could talk to your graphic designer or brand strategist and get an opinion that matches your brand. I would imagine that you would choose one of the 5 styles as well as filters and color schemes for your stories and your posts, for that matter, that matches your brand as close as it can.
Okay. 3 more. They're all kind of technical. I take my pictures with an iPhone, but do my Instagram posts with an iPad. The Story app only sees the camera roll on the iPad and not the photo stream that also has all my iPhone pictures synced on the iPad. How do I get the Stories to see the different photo albums?
I would say send me an email and I can help you better one-to-one.
Okay. How can I keep my personal Instagram account and also have a business Instagram account on a single device?
Sure. So on both iOS and Android, you can have, I believe, up to 5 accounts in the same application, in the same Instagram application. And there's a function in settings. So if you go to your profile settings and you scroll down a little bit or whatever, it says add an account, and then you'll just plug in the username and password for your business profile, and you'll be in. And then when you go to Instagram, you'll click on your little icon for either your personal profile or your business profile, and then up at the top left-hand corner, you'll see a drop-down, a disclosure arrow, and it will give you the selection for toggling back and forth between the 2 accounts.
Great. Last one. Don't know a lot about creating the storyboards. Is there an online course that can better prepare me to do just what you've demonstrated today?
So what I would tell you is that there are a couple of things. Actually, I'll pull them up because I was looking at them earlier. This is actually a Khan Academy course, and so if you go to khanacademy.com or .org, I forget, .org, and look up the art of storytelling. And this is a wonderful course that's been developed for free for teaching you how to develop stories, and it uses the Pixar, some of the concepts from the Pixar directors and story artists to develop stories. So I would do that. Look up khanacademy.org and check out the art of storytelling, and it's a fantastic program. If you want more, shoot me an email. There are several other courses that I have taken over time online that also cover this material, and I'd be happy to send you a link for those.
Great. Ray, thank you again for the webinar today.